Hey, how's it going, S22i riders? I have my S22i here that actually has a noisy bottom bracket bearing. And this video is going to show you what it takes to remove all the covers, change the bearing out, and put it back together. So let's get started. First thing we're going to want to do is to remove the right pedal. With the right pedal removed, we're going to remove this right cover. Now that we have the right side cover off, let's go ahead and remove the left side cover. First, take the left side pedal off. Next, remove the screws that hold the left side cover on. Before the left side cover will come off, we actually have to take off the crank. This cap requires a 3mm Allen wrench. With that removed, the crank comes right off. Now that we have all the screws removed, we have the crank off, this piece here can slide forward or backwards. Just however we can get this thing off here and get it out of the bike. just like that. The next thing we're going to do is remove the tension on the belt. And what I like to do in cases like this is I will put a piece of tape as a reference, and then take my socket and I'll put a piece of tape on it, and this way I can count the number of revolutions that I loosen the nut, and so when I put everything back together I can get it pretty close to the way they had it at the factory. It's 1 revolution, 2 revolutions. Same thing for the left side. One revolution, 2 revolutions. So now, with the nuts backed off, we're going to release the tension on the front hub. So we still have a fair amount of tension left in the belt, so we're going to go ahead and back this off 2 more revolutions on each side. That's 1, 2. Actually, could probably go another 1 there. Yeah. There. Okay, with the tension backed off, we'll go ahead and just kind of walk the belt off the edge of the pulley. Okay, we're at the point where we can just go ahead and pull the crank right out. Just like that. So now we're left with the bottom brackets, and we're going to use our bottom bracket tool to pull this apart. The tool I'm using is made by Park Tool, and it is part BBT-69.2. It's a very well made tool. I got it off of Amazon. Because this is the right side of the bike, to loosen the bearing you're going to spin it clockwise. That's what the bearing looks like. Okay, now we're on the left side of the bike. We're going to remove the left bearing, and in this case you're going to go counterclockwise. That's what the left bearing looks like. Okay, just to verify that we have the right bearing, the bearing I ordered was a BB-RS500. Pretty easy to see there. And it comes as a 68mm bearing. And we want to verify that we indeed have 68mm between the 2 outside edges of the shell. So using my calipers, I measure that and I come up with 2.67 inches. And when I do the calculation, that comes out to 67.8, so 68 millimeters. That's pretty close. So I think we're in good shape there. So we do have the right bearing. Now that we have the bearings out of the bike, let's take a look at the old bearing and compare it to the new bearing. So the old bearing, they're pretty low quality. You can feel there's a lot of slop, a lot of looseness here. It's just not very well made. It's just pretty cheap. Looking online, you can get these bearings pretty much for like $4 or $6. They're made in China, just low quality. I don't understand why they even put them in the bike. Now the bearing that's replacing it is made by Shimano, and definitely a high quality bearing. You can see right off the get-go it's just made better. It's just beefier. This is actually the right side. The right side's got this shell on it, and you know, just definitely just overall nicer quality. Comes with sealer on the threads, so that way when you put it together and you torque it, it should keep it from coming apart. So let's go ahead and put the bearings in. Okay, let's install the right side bearing. I'll make sure we start it by hand. Okay, now the left side bearing. Again, you start it by hand. Okay, now that we have them snug, we need to torque them. And according to Shimano's instructions, it tells us 35 to 50 Newton meters. So this is where having a torque wrench definitely comes in handy. If you don't have a torque wrench, you could possibly borrow one from somebody that you know that's handy, or maybe rent one from the auto parts store. I personally own one, so I'm going to go ahead and torque these up to 35 to 50 Newton meters. Now that we have our bottom bracket bearings in, we can go ahead and start putting it back together. Go ahead and slide the right side of the crank in. Let's put the belt back on. Sure we have in the right spot. With the belt in place, let's go ahead and put the tension back on the belt. And if you recall, when I removed the tension, we went 2 revolutions plus 2 more, and then I went another one after that, so we have 5 to go. So we want to do it pretty equally between left and right, so we don't start getting this thing kind of tilted and, you know, to the point where it's going to hit the arm or the magnet here, because everything runs pretty close here. So we're going to do it probably 2 at a time, and the last one will be 1. That's 1. That's 2. That's 1. That's 2. Now we'll do 2 more on this side. It's 1, 2. One, 2, and then we'll do the last revolution on each side now. There's one. Okay, now we can go ahead and put the left cover back on. It's always good to use a screwdriver to get things started, so that way you don't cross thread things. The upper one, I had a pretty good idea where things were going. This one here, just want to make sure you get things kind of moving in the right direction. Okay, right side cover. Now we're going to put the left side crank on. Make sure that that goes on first and it's snug. And then we can tighten the pinch bolts. With their crank in place, let's put our pedals back on. Now make sure that you have the left pedal on the left side and the right pedal on the right side. Okay, let's look at how we did here. Everything's back together. Give her a spin. That is smooth, quiet. There's no play in it. Before, you could actually grab a hold of the crank and give it a pull, and this thing would actually be clunk, clunk, clunk. That's gone. So I'm looking forward to get back on this thing and just seeing how much better it is. Thanks for watching.